All right, let's let a few people say hello to you now. With the record coming out tomorrow, Mick has been nice enough to say you take a few calls, just a couple. And again, the album is called The Other Side of Mars, the first ever solo album from Mick Mars, officially released everywhere you get music tomorrow, and of course on the streaming platforms as well. Ray in Maryland wanted to jump on and say hello to you, Mick. Go ahead, Ray. You're on with Mick Mars.
Hey, Mick. Great to talk to you, man.
Thanks. How you doing, Ray?
I'm doing pretty good, man. First time I got to see you was in 1984 at the Capitol Center in Largo, Maryland. And I was 15, and my parents took me. And it was Wasted, Motley, and Ozzy. And probably not the coolest thing that my parents took me, but I'll move on. But it was the first time I smelled this funky aroma, which stayed in my nose for like the next week in school. And they even explained to me what it was. I was kind of a naive kid. But the question, but I tell you what, it's one of my most fondest memories ever. And you guys were great, and it was just a cool experience. But the question I wanted to ask you, you have such a definitive guitar sound. And is that do you attribute that to the gear, the way you play, the combo of the two? Because as soon as you hear Mick Mars hit a chord, it's like, oh, that's Mick Mars. I'm just curious about that, how you get your sound.
It has a lot to do with your equipment, the way that, you approach, the way that you kind of like use your hands to like over the pickup to do like different weird things. But like mostly it's like I think people can, like I learned from like Jimi Hendrix. I learned from like Jeff Beck how they got their tone, and it's like to try and copy that, would be impossible. But to develop my own thing from listening to tone, because that is the most important part to me really, is a tone to be identified by. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of things that I do that's involved with that, especially like, the approach of the attack on your guitar or whatever, that kind of stuff.
Mick, I don't play guitar, but I've talked to tons of guitar players in my career. And I think one of the things that I've learned in talking to guitar players is that so many times people try to figure out how a guitar player is getting his sound or his tone, etc. And the part that they leave out sometimes is it's just the player himself, right? It's his hands, it's the way he plays. That's a big part of it. Like you could get you could duplicate all the gear, you could duplicate all the pedals, you could try everything, but something comes from the player himself. Ted Nugent was on with me once, and Nugent was talking about that the first tour Van Halen ever went on, Van Halen opened for Nugent very, very early on when nobody knew who they were. And he said he was listening to this kid, Eddie Van Halen, play all this crazy shit during soundcheck. And he said he picked up Eddie's guitar and he was lost. And then Eddie picked up his Birdland and was lost. And like they couldn't, but because so much of it comes from the actual person holding it, right?
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. Yeah. Yes. And it's like trying to find your own tone. You got to just play around with it until you go like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, I'm happy with that. Because you can do a lot of different things, with your own hands. It suddenly becomes yours.